Hi guys, and welcome back to this tutorial from the series Blender for Production, the Blender to Nuke workflow. My name is Helge from PixelTrain. It has been a while since I made my last tutorial in this series because I needed some time for some own projects, and yeah, it was a creative break for me. But now I'm back, and in the meantime, many of you have watched my tutorials, gave me feedback, asked questions here on my YouTube channel, but also on Patreon. Thanks for all the support you gave me, and I want to do more tutorials now with these workflows because I think that's important that Blender gets its own space in studio productions also because Blender is a great application. Some of you gave me also questions about the Cryptomatte workflow, which seems to be broken, and also what's new in CyclesX. And so in this tutorial, I want to give you a collection of topics answering some of the questions you had. I hope this is useful. If you like these kind of tutorials, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. And if you want to support this channel, you can go to my Patreon and be a patron. And there you also find all the files you need for some of these tutorials, and also you have the tutorials advertising free. But now let's get started. I want to talk today about three topics. One is the Cryptomatte workflow, which seems to be broken for some of you. Then I also want to show you the differences between my old Blender version, which I used for capturing. It was Blender 2.92, I think. Now we have Blender 3.0 beta. It's built from the 8th of November. And also NUKE is in a new version, and this makes a problem in the Cryptomatte workflow. And at the end of the tutorial, I want to give you a brief overview about a paid plugin, but it's so cheap, it's $15, and it's absolutely worth every penny. So let's get started. I set up quite a simple scene here. I have some objects here and also attached some materials here. And what I want to do first is I want to remember you how we brought our multi-layer EXRs to NUKE, because this was the first problem most people had, and we talked about this problem in the first three tutorials. So as a reminder, we don't use the output directly here. We went to the compositing world, activated use nodes, and then we talked about this render layer node that it adds automatically all our passes, which we activate here in the view layer passes. For example, I go now here and say I want to have normals and UV, for example, and a diffuse, a glossy, and so on. And then you see we have these ports here, and then we needed to output them. And for this, we used, you remember here under outputs, a file output node. If you press the N key, you can open here under node the properties, and here we can add outputs here. And then we have here OpenEXR as a multilayer or OpenEXR as separate files. This was much work, and so we built our own node groups out of that. So let's take this route here. The node group we built was in its own blend file, so we can go here to File, Append. And let's go out here a little bit. You see here in one of my folders, I have all blend files here, which I use for different work. And here is a blend file with the compositor nodes. We built this blend file together in the three tutorials before, or you can also get this blend file on my Gumroad, link below. And if you dive now with the append here into this blend file, and we are looking for a node group, we can go here to node tree, and here are three node groups. We need for this tutorial only standard EXR, and hold down the shift key, Cryptomatte. And I append now these node groups. These node groups don't appear directly here in the node graph. The reason for this is these are only groups which are now inside of this blend file. To add a group, you can press Shift A again, go here to group, and here they are. Let's first take this standard EXR here, and I place it. Looks quite strange. This here is not a file output node. This here is a group. So you can see, if you select that and press the tab key, you can dive into the group. Here you see what we have prepared together. And if you then click here this arrow upwards, you go out of the group. What we need is we have to unpack the group. For doing that, you can select this thing and press Command-Alt-G or right mouse button, ungroup. And now you see this here is the same file output node which we had before, but here are all our passes. Question is, what is so different now with these here and these here? The thing is that in production we want to have always the same names for a pass. And Blender adds normally to the names the name of the layer which it's on, and this is really a problem. So we built that here. We talked about that in this first tutorial, to have always the same naming convention. And here we have then the path. If you select that and you open here your properties, where this file then is stored. You remember / means where the blend file lives. So this blend file here lives in a folder on my desktop, and so it generates a render folder, and then this here is the name, which you can change. And then the ridiculous part of making all the connections here. For this, wait to the end of the tutorial. There's this plugin, which I want to demonstrate to you. Then it does it automatically for you, really convenient. But this here is for remembering what we have done before. So I take now my image, bring it to RGBA, which is then the image layer. And there's also an alpha in it, so we don't need that here. Let's take now the diff color here, which is that here, and the glossy color, which is that here. And yeah, the noisy image, we don't need that. Cool thing is, if we don't use here a layer, it isn't in the EXR later. So it's really prepared for everything, but you don't get everything in your EXR. Let's add also our Cryptomatte here, and I unpack it directly. We've talked about that. And let's also add Cryptomatte here in our passes. So object and material, and now we have them here. Cryptomatte is normally something I want to have as a separate output. The reason for this is, if you have really heavy EXRs, you can pack everything into a multilayer EXR, which is okay. Then you have one file per frame. NUKE needs later time to unpack all this stuff. And really often it's faster, depending on your devices and how you set everything up, that you have an EXR file for every of these layers. So to get that, a single EXR for every of these layers, the only thing you have to do is you go here to the file format and change that here from multilayer EXR to EXR. But then everything here is a separate file. You see, I break my names for that. So if you want to have something like that, build your own node group for that or wait for the plugin. But it is possible to do that. But now comes the catch. If you make separate EXRs here, and the Cryptomatte is in this list, you break all your Cryptomatte layers out. And this is something which no plugin can understand. So Cryptomatte typically needs to be encapsulated in one EXR. And that's the reason why I have two of these guys here. Okay, let's hook up Cryptomatte. There's another little catch here. I have RGBA here only to have a nice image here that I see what the Cryptomatte is for. In most applications which use Cryptomatte, we have not only these numbered layers here, crypto object 0, 1, and 2, but we also have here a fourth layer, crypto object, for example. In Blender's implementation, we don't have that. Yeah, you see, we only have 0 to 2 here, 0 to 2. The solution for me was that I used the image here, so the beauty pass for that. But normally the implementations also understand if you only deliver 3 of them. So no problem here, but I used the way which I taught you in the first tutorial. So I hook first here object and material to the beauty pass. And then I take here object 0, 1, and 2, and the materials. So this is your output rule. Now let's talk about where everything is saved. Let's go here in the render folder, render AOVs version 1 as a multilayer. That's okay for me. Then I go here to crypto, same folder, render crypto version 1, everything is okay here. So let's ask Cycles here for its settings. So this is CyclesX because it's Blender 3.0 beta. Here under sampling, we have now a noise threshold, which is like a percentage of noise, which you accept. I've increased a little bit the value to 0.1, which means 10%. So the image will be noisy, but it's faster for this tutorial. And the max samples I've lowered to 1024. So let's render this out. Okay, the image has finished. So let's go to NUKE and press the R key here to load now. And you see here are my two files. One is the AOV file, the other one is the Cryptomatte. Select both, go to open and place them. So let's first hook up here, render AOVs here and take a look into the list. And now you see exactly what we expect. We have RGBA. So if you have a normal Blender output, which is an EXR, you have black here. So that was the reason why I built this file output setup here, so that I have RGBA directly hooked up here correctly. And here is the diffuse color and here is the glossy colors. Okay, so everything's fine here on this side here. Now comes the Cryptomatte part where many people had their problems. Let's hook it up here first. Okay. If you now go here into the list, you see, okay, here are our layers. Crypto material is the beauty path because we hooked it up like that. Then we have 0, 1, and 2. And now you see, yeah, there is data. Wonderful. So seems to be everything here. But now many people are struggling at this point. The reason for this is since NUKE 13.4 or whatever they had, I can't remember it exactly, Foundry has its own Cryptomatte implementation. Before we used the gizmo, we had to install it from the Psyop GitHub. And now in this version of NUKE, we have an implementation of Cryptomatte, which is from Foundry. And there's one catch. If you have installed the old gizmo from the Psyop GitHub, you maybe still have the data inside of your NUKE folder. Let me show you what I mean. If you have installed it correctly before, you have somewhere mostly in your user folder. I'm here on Mac. I hope it's the same for Windows and Linux for you. There's a hidden folder .nuke here. And here is a place where you can install this old gizmo. And if you have done that, you maybe have here the old information still lying around. And in the init or the menu, you maybe have the path here still importing this stuff. And this will kill the implementation. So make sure that not the old stuff is loaded at all. So I commented it out here with this # here, import Cryptomatte utilities. This was the old stuff. I don't want to use it. This here is something different. So this is out. And I also deleted everything from the old Cryptomatte implementation. So this is quite important that this here is really safe. If you want to test it by your own, back up, zip it, clear, and start NUKE blank to test that. You can check that quite easily here. If you add now the Cryptomatte here, you see this here is named Cryptomatte and you only have 2 tabs. In the old implementation, it was named, I think, Psyop Cryptomatte, and you had more than 1 tab. So make sure that you really have the Foundry Cryptomatte here running. This is the first thing, and no conflicts. Now, if I now hook this up here, like we've set it up, you now see it works. It finds now both layers, objects and materials, which we used, and now you can work with your Cryptomatte here. So the picker add is on. I go now here, for example, to the objects. I want to have this cube here. I hold down Command, Shift, and make a drag here. And now you see the picker has grabbed the object with the name cube. And now we can deactivate that here. And now we have a matter output here running. You see, if you now go here and press the A key, you see now you have a wonderful mat, and you now can use Cryptomatte from Blender directly here inside of NUKE. So I hope this solves your problem here. So what I've done is make everything in NUKE clear here in your NUKE config file. So in this folder, nothing from the old stuff. Make sure that the Cryptomatte is really the Cryptomatte from Foundry and inside of Blender. Make sure that you use a file output, which is a multilayer which uses exactly these names here. Crypto object 001, 2, and so on. And if you want to have the fourth, you can use here the beauty pass for that. So this was the first part, Cryptomatte. Let's talk about something else. Since these tutorials I've captured, you remember that I showed you how to make a world position pass and so on in its own scene, and it was really much work. Nice thing here in Blender 3.0 in CyclesX, if you now need a world position pass, you can go here now into your view layer passes and look at that. Now we have a world position pass here. So I tick this here. I have now here the position pass. And what we do now here is, this is our standard EXR. I don't know if I prepared a position slot for that. No. So let's do one. I click here, add input. Then I go here and we see, we name it position. So now we have it. Here it is. And then we can connect these two. So now this is a position, and let's make this version 2 and click render. Okay, go back here to NUKE, and now we can load here this one. Here we go. We are back to RGBA. Let's first check here position, and now you see this is a standard position pass. If you zoom in here, you see it's not anti-aliased. That's exactly what we want. We don't want to have anti-aliased position passes. Great. And then we can test it with a position to points node here. So hook it up. We are now in 3D space of NUKE. We don't see anything because we have to tell now this node, surface points, what's the name of our position pass, which is position. And after adding that, you now see here the positions. We also have normals somewhere, I hope. No, I haven't outputted them. And what we can try here now is we can use these normals here. I think we have the normals here, but yeah, we haven't hooked them up. That's a pity. Okay. Let's go back here to this read node and read it in again. Let's take a look now here. Now we have normals. Great. Go back here and hook up the normals, not motion, normals. There we go. Now we have normals and the point positions. And if we now add a light source here inside of NUKE, it's not hooked up in a scene, but it works. If it's open, you see here in the viewport, it works. And you now move your light around, you will see that the points are now lit here by this light source. So yeah, now the whole building of position passes is done really easily by ticking this position checkbox in CyclesX. Great thing. So you've seen we have some nice additions. Now I want to give you a hint how to work even faster. When I built these node setups with you, I told you that the hooking up of all this stuff here takes time, and for this I use a script, which was an in-house script, which I was not able to share. Now I found a script which does exactly what you want to do. It's here on Blender Market. It's named Build Export Node, View Layer Render Passes. And this author here has written that, and you see he's updating that a lot. It's really cool. It's quite cheap, $15, and it has a much more features which I can show you really briefly. It's not a tutorial about this plugin, but yeah, I want to show you what it does and why it's so cool. So if you have installed that now, you will see that here, first under your view layers, we have now here a new section, view layer. And the cool thing is, you normally go into the view layers here and add here all your passes, which you might want to have. Let's add some more. And instead of using now a node group or something like that, the only thing you have to do is you click here, build export nodes. That's it. Now you see it builds a file output node for you and it's pre-configured. There are some things which you have to change now. So that's important. So for example, the path here is something I want now to change. You see, you can set it here directly first if you want, but I'm really used to / render, and then you say, for example, Addon EXR. Yeah, then I tell now the system, same like before, which file format you want to have, but you see everything is updated directly for you. Cool thing is if you now change here something, for example, you also have a vector and set and mist, and you click that again, you see it rebuilds the whole thing. But my change here from the file format is gone. But yeah, this is only 1 second. So it hooks it up again. Another thing which is extremely cool, I add denoising data here. This is important. And then we also say that we want to have denoising here in the render. Yeah, it's there. Let's go back here, say build export. And now you see, if you take a closer look here, that we have some additional nodes between here, these elements. One thing here is that here is a denoiser node. So this denoiser node now here uses the noisy image, the denoising normals, and the albedo. So everything which you need for denoising correctly. And the combined pass, which is outputted here, is using the denoised image. So that's quite cool. You also see that some other passes here have nodes in between. For example, the depth pass is first normalized, and then we have a color ramp here if you want to play with that. Same for the mist pass. Yeah. So nice additions here if you want to do that. And it's a really cool open system. So let's take our render again, / and we say this is the add-on version. And one thing I want to change now, and that's nice, that's so open, is file format, everything in one file. And then I go here up, and you see the first output is named image, but I know from my experience with NUKE that I need, if you want to have it here in the list, I need an RGBA layer, not image. Otherwise, I don't see it directly. And yeah, this is something I don't like. So what you can do is you still can go here to the layer and rename it. You see, now it's RGBA. Yeah, so it's still open. It's the same system which I taught you, but everything here is really fast. There are other nice features in that. For example, if you go here to the dropdown, you remember I showed you how to build a normal pass scene. You can do that here by one click, then you get a new scene and it's built correctly. You can have a fake object ID pass if you like. Cool stuff here, everything in. And in the preferences, so if you go to edit preferences, and into the plugin itself. So I think it's named view layer, or here it is, build export node. You see that you also can make your own preferences, how every pass is named and how it is working. So nice plugin. Thanks to the author here. The $15 are really good invested, and I have no contact with the author. I don't get anything from him. But I like his work, so go to Blender Market if you like that. And now you can render this out here and get your image really, really fast. For the Cryptomatte, I still use really often my separate setup, so it's on you. I wanted to show you everything which you have to know if you want to work in this workflow. If you have more questions now about the Blender to NUKE workflow, please let me know in the comments below. You can write me, you can add me to your Patreons if you want to support the whole thing. And let's finish by showing this output here. So this is the add-on version. You see directly the image is there because I renamed the first to that. And here are all the layers, and the depth here is now normalized, like you've seen. And let's test the Cryptomatte at the end. Put it in here. bring it up. It's the Foundry Cryptomatte, and here are the two collectors to make your own Cryptomatte. Thanks a lot. See you next time. Helge.